When they left me behind on the road, I thought it was the end. But the road had one more lesson, and it started with silence. The Arizona sun doesn't forgive. It burns everything, even memories. That morning, I thought it would be a good idea to ride along with my daughter's family on their way to California. "You should get out of the house, Dad," she said. "See some desert, breathe some air." I smiled. Truth was, I hadn't been anywhere in years. After Martha passed, I stopped wanting to see anything. The house was quiet, and that suited me fine. But maybe she was right. Maybe I needed to see the road again. They picked me up early, just after sunrise. My daughter, Emily, was at the wheel, her husband, Derek, beside her. Their boy, my grandson, Jacob, sat in the back, earbuds in, lost in whatever music kids listen to now. I sat quietly, clutching a thermos of coffee and the leather bag Martha gave me on our 20th anniversary. I didn't talk much. They didn't either. Hours passed. The road stretched out like a ribbon of heat. Somewhere past Kingman, Emily pulled over near a gas station. "Bathroom break," she said. I nodded, stepped out, and took a deep breath. The desert air was dry and sharp, like the smell of burnt copper. My knees cracked as I straightened up. The sun hit my eyes. I turned to ask Jacob if he wanted a soda, but the car door slammed. Then the engine started. I thought it was a joke. I really did. I smiled, raised my hand, and waited for her to roll down the window. But she didn't. The car rolled forward, slow, then faster, then onto the highway. I waved. I yelled her name. My voice cracked, swallowed by the wind and the hiss of the tires. The red car became a dot, then disappeared into the horizon. 5 minutes, I told myself. Maybe 10. Maybe they went to get gas. Maybe Derek forgot his wallet. Maybe they'll be right back. I waited under the gas station's faded sign. Flies buzzed around the trash can. The old man behind the counter looked at me through the window, but said nothing. 1 hour passed. Then 2. I drank what was left of my coffee, warm and bitter. The station closed at dusk. He told me to move along, said he didn't want trouble hanging around. By nightfall, the desert got cold. I sat on the curb, my jacket zipped up to my chin, and for the first time in years, I felt small again. Like a child left behind after school. My phone had no signal. My heart had too much noise. I thought of Emily. Her hair, the way she used to braid it when she was little. The way she'd run to me after school, holding a drawing she made. The way she'd cry when she scraped her knee, and how I'd always tell her, "I'll never let you down, kiddo." But somewhere between then and now, she learned to let me down. A trucker finally stopped. A big rig, headlights like twin suns. The driver rolled down his window. "You okay, old-timer?" I hesitated before answering. "Not really," I said. He gave me a ride to a diner a few miles up the road. Bought me pie and coffee, refused my money. He didn't ask questions. I didn't give answers. But as I sat there, staring at the steam rising from the mug, I realized something. Being left behind isn't always the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning. When I closed my eyes that night in a cheap roadside motel, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about understanding. About how someone could leave their own father behind like that. But the next morning, when I turned on the TV and saw the local news, I started to think differently. The morning light bled through the cheap motel curtains, painting the room in weak gold. My bones ached from the mattress, thin as paper, stiff as guilt. I sat up, every joint reminding me that 70 years on this earth come with a price. I didn't sleep much. My mind kept replaying the same scene. The red car disappearing into the horizon, the wind swallowing my voice. There was an old television bolted to the wall. I turned it on, half hoping for noise to drown the thoughts. Static flickered. Then the morning news came through. Local station, nothing fancy. A cheerful anchor spoke over a picture that froze my breath mid-sip of motel coffee. A silver-haired man, last seen near Kingman. My face, my shirt, my bag. They call me missing. Authorities say the man may be suffering from confusion, the reporter said. Family members told officers he wandered off during a rest stop yesterday afternoon. They searched for hours before alerting police. I nearly dropped the mug. Wandered off. I whispered. Searched. My hand shook. I turned the volume up. There was a clip. Emily's voice, cracking with rehearsed sadness. "We're just so worried. My father's been forgetful lately. If anyone sees him, please call the number on the screen." Forgetful. Wandered off. Confused. They didn't just leave me, they erased me. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. More like air escaping a cracked pipe. The kind of laugh that tastes like rust. I'd never been lost in my life. I was a truck mechanic for 40 years. I'd driven across this country more times than I could count. I knew every turn on Route 66 better than Emily's husband knew how to fix a flat tire. They lied. To the police. To the world. To themselves. I turned the TV off and sat there in silence. The air conditioner hummed a tired tune. In the mirror, I saw a man who looked more like his own ghost. But ghosts have one advantage. They can haunt the living. I grabbed my bag and walked to the diner across the road. Same one from last night. The waitress, kind eyes, silver bun, name tag that said Marge, poured me another cup. "You're the fella the trucker dropped off, huh?" "Guess so," I said. "You got people looking for you. Saw it on the news." "Yeah," I muttered. "They're always looking, just never in the right direction." She frowned, unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. When I finished my coffee, she asked where I was headed. I told her home, but I didn't mean my house. I meant the truth. There's a thing about getting older. People start assuming you're harmless, that you'll forget, that you'll forgive. But I remember everything. Every dollar I lent them. Every night I watched Jacob when they wanted date night. Every repair I made to their leaky roof. And now they were using my name. The man who raised Emily alone after her mother died, to build themselves a perfect little life where I didn't fit the picture. I went outside, leaned against the payphone booth, and called the sheriff's office in Kingman. Told them I was alive and well. The deputy on the line sounded stunned. "Sir, your family filed a report. Said they searched for you for hours." "Then maybe they should have looked in the rearview mirror," I said, and hung up. It didn't take long before word spread. Within an hour, my phone, finally back in range, buzzed with missed calls. Emily, Derek, even Jacob. Voicemails flooded in. "Dad, oh my God, are you okay? It was a misunderstanding. We thought you wandered off. Please don't make this a big deal, okay?" A misunderstanding. I listened to their voices one by one. No one said sorry. No one said we came back. It was all about saving face. Their fear wasn't losing me. It was losing their story. That's when I decided I wouldn't shout. I wouldn't fight. I'd let them think they won. Because silence is the sharpest knife a man can carry. That afternoon, I went to a local mechanic shop, asked to borrow a corner of the office. The owner, a broad man named Clint, looked me over and said, "You look like you've seen better days." "Not yet," I said, "but I'm about to." I sat at the desk and started writing. Not letters of anger, but something better. A record. Receipts. Ownership. Dates. Every favor, every transaction, every repair I'd ever done for them. I wasn't just their forgotten father. I was their foundation. And foundations, when cracked, take everything down with them. By sunset, I had a plan. Not for revenge, for remembrance. The drive back home felt longer than the years I'd lived there. The highway stretched like an endless scar across the desert, and I followed it quietly, one thought at a time. I borrowed Clint's old pickup. He didn't ask for details, just tossed me the keys and said, "Bring her back in one piece." The truck rumbled like a tired animal, but it held steady, faithful, something my own blood hadn't been. By the time I reached my town, the sun was setting again, that deep orange glow that makes everything look softer than it really is. My street looked the same crooked mailbox, the same oak tree whose roots cracked the sidewalk, the same tired little house with the porch I built 20 years ago. Only one thing was different, the car in the driveway. A black SUV. Derek's. I parked a block away and sat there for a minute. My fingers tapped on the steering wheel. My keychain felt heavier than it should have. Finally, I stepped out and walked toward the house, slow, quiet, like approaching a memory that might break if you touch it wrong. The porch light was on. Through the window, I could see shadows moving, laughter, the flicker of a TV. Emily's laugh, Derek's voice, and Jacob's shape moving between them. Home. My home. I tried my key. It didn't fit. I turned it again. Nothing. I looked closer. The lock had been changed. A neighbor, Mrs. Clark, stepped out with her dog. She stopped, startled. "Stephen? Oh my, they said you were lost," I said, finishing for her. She hesitated. "They said you wandered off." I'm glad you're okay." "Me too," I said, though I wasn't sure what okay meant anymore. The curtains inside moved. Emily's face appeared for a moment, then vanished. A few seconds later, The front door opened halfway. Derek stood there, half smile, half guilt. "Stephen, hey, you should have called." "I did," I said. "You didn't answer." He scratched his neck, avoiding my eyes. "It's been complicated." Emily appeared behind him, arms crossed. "Dad, you can't just show up like this." "We were living in my house." I asked. My voice was calm, but it hung in the air like thunder waiting for a place to land. Her lips parted. "It's temporary. We needed space while our roof's being fixed." I nodded slowly. "And you changed the locks for comfort?" Silence. Jacob peeked from the hallway, his face pale. "Grandpa." "Hey, kiddo," I said softly. "You remember me, right?" He nodded, eyes wet. Derek snapped. "Go upstairs." That tone, the one Derek always used, firm but small, like a man pretending to be in control. I met his gaze, and for the first time, he looked away. "I won't stay long," I said. "Just came to get my things." Emily sighed. "Dad, we packed some of your tools in the garage." "We thought that I wasn't coming back," I finished. She didn't deny it. I walked past Derek before he could stop me. The smell hit first, lavender candles, new curtains, a rug I'd never seen. They'd rearranged everything. My chair, the one where I'd watched baseball every Sunday, was gone. So was Martha's photograph from the mantel. In the garage, cardboard boxes sat stacked neatly, labeled Dad's stuff. My old toolbox sat open, half empty. My chisels gone. My drill missing. The leather apron Martha embroidered with my initials, nowhere. Emily stood in the doorway, arms folded. "Dad, we were going to call you. We just didn't have time?" I asked, glancing at the boxes. "You had time to file a police report, to lie on TV, to change the locks, but not enough time for a phone call." Her lip trembled. "You don't understand," Derek thought. "I understand plenty." I cut her off. "You were embarrassed. Didn't want the old man slowing you down. Didn't want to explain me to your friends. To Jacob's school. I get it." She stepped closer. "Dad, please don't make this ugly." I smiled. "Sweetheart, you already did." I grabbed the small box that held my toolbox, closed it, and walked out without another word. Jacob's face pressed against the upstairs window, eyes red. He mouthed something. "I'm sorry." I lifted a hand. No anger, no blame, just a quiet acknowledgement. He was just a kid. Not his fault his parents forgot what love looks like. When I reached the truck, Emily called out, "Where will you go?" I turned back, the sunset framing her silhouette in gold and regret. "Don't worry," I said. "I've been left before. I know the way." Then I got in and drove off. The road swallowed me again, but this time, I didn't feel lost. I felt clear. I had nothing left to lose, and men like me do their best work when there's nothing left to take. That night, I checked the deed of the house online and smiled when I saw my name still on it. They might have changed the locks, but the home, and the truth, still belonged to me. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Old habits die hard. Even without the workshop, my hands still expected to work when the sky turned pink. Only this time, the work was different. It wasn't about fixing things. It was about remembering who I used to be and reminding them. I spread out the documents on the small motel table, the house deed, the insurance papers, and the old bank statements I'd saved in a binder labeled Martha's file. She always said I kept too much paper. Turns out, paper remembers everything. They'd forgotten who paid the mortgage, who built the fence, who patched the roof after the hailstorm of '09. They thought I was just an old man holding on to the past. But the past was written in my name, and I still had the receipts. I spent the next few days at the library and the county office. The clerks gave me strange looks, but no one asked questions. I filed for a title verification request, ordered duplicate copies of ownership documents, and even found the tax receipts that proved I'd been paying the property tax long after Emily took over the bills. Every night, I sat by the motel window, watching cars pass on the highway. People heading somewhere, unaware of how fragile belonging really is. I thought about how easily a family can turn into strangers. One decision, one careless lie, one bathroom break too long. But I wasn't planning revenge out of anger. Anger fades. What lasts is the need for truth. I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted them to look me in the eye and finally see what they did. On the third day, I walked into the First County Bank, where Derek had refinanced his car loan 2 years ago. I still had the contact saved, Miss Peterson. She looked older, her hair streaked with silver now, but her eyes lit up when she recognized me. Mr. Collins, I thought you moved. I was planning to, I said. But plans change when your family decides to take a shortcut. She blinked, unsure whether to laugh. What do you mean? I said, sliding a few papers across her desk. Someone's been living in my house. I'd like to make sure the title still belongs to me. She frowned as she looked through the documents. Everything here shows your name, sir. You never transferred ownership. I know, I said. That's what makes it interesting. Her lips tightened. Do you want to take any action? Not yet, I said. Just make sure they can't take any without me. She nodded slowly. Understood. When I left the bank, I stopped by the diner again. Marge smiled when she saw me. Back again, huh? Guess I'm becoming part of the furniture. She poured me coffee without asking. You figure out what you're going to do? Something quiet, I said. Loud people make too many mistakes. She chuckled. You sound like a man who's done this before. Not revenge, I said softly. Just rebuilding. Later that evening, I went online and did one last thing. I logged into the security system account, the one I'd installed years ago, with cameras around the house. I'd paid for the cloud storage myself, and the access email still belonged to me. When the feed loaded, my hands froze. There they were, Emily and Derek, sitting at the kitchen table, sipping wine. My kitchen, my table, my life. But that wasn't what caught my breath. It was Jacob. He was sitting alone on the porch, hoodie pulled tight, staring out into the dark street. He looked small, forgotten, like I had on that highway. I realized then that maybe my plan wasn't about teaching Emily or Derek. Maybe it was about teaching him. About showing Jacob that silence can be strength, that the world doesn't end when people leave you behind. Sometimes, it just begins again differently. I downloaded the footage and saved it. Every file, every conversation, every laugh that happened in my home while they told the world I was missing. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with it, but I knew one thing. When people build lies, all it takes is a single piece of truth to make the whole structure fall. The next morning, I went to a notary office. The woman there, probably no older than 30, looked up and smiled politely. Purpose of visit? To leave something behind, I said, handing her an envelope. Just in case I forget who I am. Inside was a letter addressed to Emily and Derek, along with the house deed, proof of ownership, and a USB with all the security footage. The letter wasn't angry. It was simple. If you ever wonder why silence can be louder than shouting, this is why. You built a home on lies, and I built mine on truth. One will last longer. I didn't sign it with love. I signed it with my full name, Stephen L. Collins. Owner. Father. Witness. As I walked out into the bright morning, I felt something shift. Not victory. Not peace. Just clarity. Like the road stretching open again, endless and familiar. I wasn't done yet. Not until they understood what it feels like to lose something you thought would always wait for you. A week later, my phone buzzed with a message from Emily. Just one line. Dad, can we talk? Maybe over dinner. No apology. No explanation. Just that calm, practiced tone she used when she wanted something. I almost deleted it. Almost. But curiosity, and something deeper, something like ache, made me pause. Maybe she wanted to clear things up. Or maybe guilt was finally heavier than her pride. I wrote back. Sure. You pick the place. She chose a quiet restaurant downtown, the kind with soft jazz and dim lights meant to make people forget the truth for an hour. When I walked in, I saw her and Derek already seated. She'd dressed up, too much for dinner with her father. Derek had that polite, hollow smile of a man preparing for negotiation. Dad, she said, standing to hug me. Her perfume was the same one Martha used to wear. For a second, it almost worked. Almost. Emily, I said, you look well fed. Derek's grin twitched. We're glad you came. I sat down, folded my hands, and looked around. They'd ordered a bottle of wine already. Expensive, as always. The waiter hovered until I waved him off. So I said, let's talk. Emily's eyes darted to Derek before she spoke. Dad, I know things got out of hand. What happened on the trip? You mean when you left me on the side of the road? Her voice faltered. We didn't mean to. Of course you didn't. You just accidentally drove 70 miles without looking back. Silence. The jazz stopped between songs, and for a moment, the only sound was Derek clearing his throat. Stephen, he said, we made a mistake. You know how stressful travel is. Jacob was fussy. We were tired. So you solved it by abandoning an old man in the desert? I leaned back. That's a new parenting trick. Emily winced. Dad, please. We came here to fix this. Fix, I said. You filed a missing person report saying I was confused and forgetful. You changed the locks on my house. You packed my life into cardboard. I'm just wondering, what exactly are we fixing? Derek finally spoke, his tone sharp. You can't keep punishing us. You're making this harder than it has to be. I smiled slowly. You think this is punishment? Derek, I haven't even started. His jaw tightened. Are you threatening us? No, I said softly. I'm reminding you. I reached into my jacket and placed a small envelope on the table. The paper was worn at the corners, the same envelope I'd given the notary to copy. What's that? Emily asked. Proof, I said, that the house you're living in, the one with my name still on the deed, belongs to me. Legally, fully, completely. Her breath caught. Derek shifted uncomfortably. You wouldn't. I wouldn't what? Take back what's mine. You're right. I wouldn't. I already did. He frowned. What does that mean? It means the bank knows. The county knows. And now, I said, sliding the envelope closer to Emily, you know. She didn't open it. Her hands trembled. Dad, why are you doing this? Because you taught me how, I said quietly. You taught me what it feels like to be left behind, to be invisible. I just wanted to see if it still hurts when the road runs the other way. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The waiter returned, setting down plates we didn't touch. The scent of garlic butter filled the silence. Finally, Emily's voice cracked. We didn't mean to hurt you. We thought you were tired of being around us. You didn't talk much. You didn't smile. It felt like you didn't want to be there. I stared at her, the daughter I'd raised with every ounce of patience I had left. So you decided to make it easier by leaving me behind? Tears filled her eyes. We panicked. I sighed, leaning back. Emily, I spent 40 years fixing engines. I know panic. Panic is when smoke starts rising and you grab a wrench. What you did wasn't panic. It was convenience. Derek muttered something under his breath, but I ignored him. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. There's something else you should know, I said. My security cameras at the house, they still work. I saw everything. Her face went pale. Everything. Every dinner. Every laugh. Every time you told Jacob I was too stubborn to live alone. Every lie you built to make yourselves comfortable. She covered her mouth. Derek's eyes darted toward the flash drive like it might explode. I'm not showing it to anyone, I said calmly. Not unless I have to. Because I don't need the world to see what kind of people you've become. I just need you to see it. Emily's tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. What do you want from us? I looked at her, really looked, not as my daughter, but as someone I used to trust. Nothing, I said. Just space. The same space you gave me on that highway. I stood up. The waiter rushed over with the check, but I waved it away. Already paid, I said. I had in advance. Before I left, I leaned close enough for Emily to hear me whisper. One day, Jacob will ask what happened between us. Tell him the truth. Tell him you left a good man behind, and he kept walking anyway. Then I walked out into the cool night. The parking lot lights flickered, reflecting off the windshield of Derek's car. For a brief moment, I saw my own reflection there. Tired, older, but unbroken. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel stranded. I felt free. 3 days passed before I saw his handwriting. The motel clerk handed me a small envelope that morning, his brow raised. For you, Mr. Collins. Delivered by hand. No return address. Just my name, written in uneven letters, the kind only a 13-year-old could make. Jacob. My throat tightened before I even opened it. I sat on the bed, sunlight cutting across the blanket, and held the envelope like it was made of glass. The seal was messy, too much glue, pressed too fast. He must have done it himself. Inside was a single sheet of lined notebook paper, folded twice. The ink had bled slightly, as if he'd written it with shaking hands. Grandpa, I don't know if you'll ever read this. Mom said not to bother you, but I saw your name on the TV when they said you were okay. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know they were going to leave you that day. I swear I didn't. Mom and Dad were fighting in the car before we stopped. They said you were slowing everything down. Dad wanted to drive ahead and come back, but Mom didn't say no fast enough. When they pulled off, I thought it was a joke. I told them to go back, but Dad yelled and said, "We'll pick him up at the next station." Then we didn't. I wanted to call you that night, but they took my phone. Grandpa, They said you'd forget, that you'd be fine. But I saw your face in the mirror when we drove away. You looked lost. I can't stop thinking about it. I miss you. I miss your stories and the way you whistle when you make breakfast. Mom cries sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. I don't think she knows how to fix it. Please don't hate her. Or me. Love. Jacob. I read it 3 times. Each word felt heavier, like someone laying bricks across my chest. When I finished, I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. My hands were shaking, not from anger, from something deeper. Regret, maybe. Or the strange ache that comes from being remembered when you've already made peace with being forgotten. Jacob didn't know me anything. He was just a boy caught in a storm he didn't make. Still, his words cut through every wall I'd built over the years. I saw myself in him, the quiet kind, trying to make sense of loud people's mistakes. I went to the diner later that day, letter still in my pocket. Marge saw my face and didn't say a word. She just poured my coffee and left the pot. I unfolded Jacob's letter again and let the words sit between the sugar packets and the salt shaker. Good kid, she asked softly. The best, I said. Then maybe that's who you're doing this for. I smiled faintly. Maybe. That evening, I walked to a small park near the motel. Kids were playing baseball under the orange sky, and somewhere a dog barked. I sat on a bench, watching strangers live their ordinary lives, and wondered how many of them had ever been left behind. The world moves fast, too fast for old men, too fast for slow hearts. But Jacob's letter reminded me that maybe not everyone forgets. Some still wait. Some still care. When the streetlights flickered on, I took out my notebook and started writing a reply. My handwriting wasn't much better than his, but it was steady. Jacob, I got your letter. I'm not mad at you, son. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes grown-ups make choices they think are small, and they turn out to be big. Sometimes people run from the things that remind them who they used to be. You didn't leave me on that road. You're the only one who tried to look back. That's something I'll never forget. Tell your mom I'm not angry. Tell her I just need time. Tell her that time doesn't mean forever. When you're ready, come by the diner off Route 66. Ask for Marge. She'll point you to me. Grandpa. I sealed the note and mailed it that night. As the clerk slid it into the outgoing tray, I felt something ease in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but movement, like the road opening again after a storm. A few days later, I started to notice things changing. Derek's SUV disappeared from my driveway feed. Emily stopped logging into my old streaming account. The house looked emptier each night, quieter. Maybe they were finally leaving, or maybe learning what silence feels like. Then, one morning, I opened the camera app and saw something new. Jacob, standing on the porch, holding a small box. He looked right into the lens, as if he knew I was watching. Then he set the box down gently and walked away. My pulse quickened. I called Marge to ask if she could drive me over. She didn't even hesitate. When we arrived, the porch looked different. Cleaner. Almost waiting. I bent down and opened the box. Inside was a folded note and something small wrapped in newspaper. The note said, Mom said we're moving to Derek's parents' place for a while. I wanted you to have this before we go. You fixed it once when I broke it. Maybe you can fix us again someday. I unwrapped the paper. Inside was a small pocket watch, the one I'd given him on his 10th birthday. The one I thought they'd thrown away. It still ticked. For the first time in weeks, I felt tears, quiet, heavy, and real. I slipped the watch into my pocket, sat on the porch, and listened to it tick against my heart. Time hadn't run out. Not yet. It was a Friday morning when I found out they were selling the house. The motel TV was playing local news again. Same bright smiles, same dull stories. Until a familiar image flashed across the screen. My house. My porch. The same porch where Jacob had left that little box. A beautiful family home in the heart of Kingman, now listed at $389,000. The reporter said cheerfully. Perfect for young families or retirees. My coffee went cold in my hand. The camera panned across the front yard I'd mowed for 20 years. The oak tree I planted when Emily was 5, and the fence I built after Martha passed. Then, the kicker, contact agents Derek and Emily Hayes for more information. They weren't just moving. They were cashing me out. For a moment, the world went quiet. No sound, no thought, just that steady heartbeat of disbelief that comes before anger. But anger didn't come. Not this time. Only clarity. I picked up the phone and called Miss Peterson at the bank. She answered on the second ring. Mr. Collins, good morning. Morning. I said calmly. Looks like my house is for sale. She sighed softly. I was hoping you wouldn't see that. Oh, I saw it, I said. Just wondering how far they'll get before the paperwork catches up. They filed nothing official, she assured. They can list it, but the sale can't close without your signature. I locked that down, like you asked. I exhaled slowly. Good. Would you like me to contact the real estate board? No, I said. Let them dream a little. That afternoon, I drove back toward the neighborhood. The for sale sign stood crooked on the lawn, planted right into the soil I'd turned by hand. Fresh paint on the porch railings, new curtains in the windows, all meant to make the place look like theirs. But it wasn't. Not in spirit, not on paper. A car pulled into the driveway. Emily stepped out first, holding a folder. Then Derek, dressed like he was auditioning for a commercial. Fake smile, expensive watch. They were meeting with an agent. I stayed across the street, leaning against Marge's old Buick. She'd insisted on driving me there, saying, "Every quiet man deserves a witness." The agent unlocked the door. They all walked inside, laughing. I waited. 15 minutes later, they came out again with a young couple, the potential buyers. I could tell by the way the woman kept nodding politely, and the man looked at the garage like he was already moving in. Emily smiled that strained smile she used to give teachers when she'd forgotten her homework. Derek gestured proudly, saying something I couldn't hear, but I could read his lips when he pointed at the roof. My father-in-law built that himself. My jaw clenched. My hands stayed still. They took everything from me, even the credit for my work. When the buyers left, Emily spotted me across the street. She froze. Derek turned, and his smile dropped like a curtain. I pushed off the car and walked toward them. My boots crunched on the gravel, steady, slow. They didn't move. Afternoon, I said. Beautiful house. Emily's voice trembled. Dad, what are you doing here? Just admiring craftsmanship, I said. Heard the man who built it was quite something. Derek tried to sound firm. You can't just show up whenever you want. Why not? I asked. Still says Stephen Collins on the deed. Silence. The wind picked up, rustling the for sale sign until it creaked in its post. Emily's face went pale. We weren't. It's not like that. Oh, it's exactly like that, I said. You thought you could sell it before I noticed. Before the old man faded away again. Derek stepped closer. You're overreacting. We were going to give you a share of the sale. A share, I repeated, almost laughing. You were going to give me a share of my own life? For the first time, Derek's mask cracked. We needed the money. You wouldn't understand. I understand perfectly. I cut him off. You left me once on a highway. Now you're trying to do it again, just with paperwork. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Dad, please. We just want to move on. I nodded. Then move. But not through me. I pulled a folded paper from my jacket, the notarized letter Ms. Peterson had helped me prepare. It was short and clean, revocation of shared access, reinstating me as the sole authorized resident and owner. I held it up so they could see the seal. This house isn't yours to sell, I said. Not today, not ever. Derek's mouth opened, then closed again. Emily whispered, You wouldn't really. I slipped the paper into her folder. I already did. Then I turned and started walking back toward the car. Behind me, I heard Derek's voice rising, low at first, then desperate. You're ruining everything. I didn't turn around. No, I said over my shoulder. You did that the day you drove away. Marge waited silently behind the wheel. As I climbed in, she asked, You feel better? No, I said, but I feel finished. She smiled sadly. That's almost the same thing. As we drove away, I looked one last time in the side mirror. Emily stood in the yard, still holding the papers, the for sale sign shaking in the wind like it knew the truth. They'd tried to sell my home, but they'd already sold something far more valuable, their honor. And the price was too cheap. The storm rolled in 2 nights later. I'd been sitting at the diner with Marge, the same corner booth where I'd found my footing again. The sky outside turned the color of bruised metal, wind whistling through the gaps in the windows. Thunder followed close behind, long, angry, unrelenting. Marge refilled my coffee and said quietly, That's no summer rain, Stephen. That one's coming to settle something. She was right. By dusk, the rain came hard. Roads shimmered black, and lightning carved the sky into pieces. Through the fog glass, I watched cars rushing home, taillights blinking like tiny red hearts trying to escape the storm. I wasn't planning to go anywhere. Not until my phone buzzed. It was Emily. No words, just a picture of the house. The front yard flooded ankle deep, water crawling up the steps. Then another message. Dad, I don't know what to do. Please. I stared at the screen, rain pounding on the roof like impatient fists. The woman who'd left me stranded was now stranded herself. Life has a cruel way of giving people the same road they once abandoned. Marge looked over my shoulder. Go, she said simply. The drive took less than 15 minutes, but it felt longer. The wipers barely kept up, slapping across the windshield in frantic rhythm. Lightning flashed every few seconds, revealing the familiar streets, the ones I'd built a life on. When I turned the corner, I saw it. My house, half drowned in the storm's fury. Emily was on the porch, barefoot, rain-soaked, trying to move sandbags with trembling arms. The SUV was gone, probably Derek's doing. Maybe he'd left again. Maybe that's what men like him did best. I parked the truck, stepped out into the rain, and waded through the water toward her. She froze when she saw me, relief and guilt battling across her face. Dad, she gasped. The drain's clogged, and water's getting into the basement. I tried. Where's Derek? I asked. She hesitated. He left this morning. Said he needed to clear his head. Of course he did. I didn't say anything. I just rolled up my sleeves and walked past her into the garage. The power was out, but I knew every inch of that place. Muscle memory took over. I grabbed a wrench, a crowbar, and the old pump I'd kept since before she was born. Within minutes, I was knee-deep in cold water, unclogging the drain, the rain roaring like applause overhead. Emily hovered nearby, voice shaking. You shouldn't be doing this. I've been doing this my whole life, I said. You just never watched before. She stood silent as I worked. The water started to drop, slowly but surely. My body ached, my knees protested, but I didn't stop. Some things a man has to finish, especially the ones that carry his name. When the worst of it passed, I climbed the steps and sat on the porch, drenched, breathing hard. Emily sat beside me, hair plastered to her face. The storm was easing, rain turning softer, thunder rolling away into the distance. Thank you, she said quietly. I didn't look at her. You're welcome. A minute passed, then another. Finally, she whispered, You must hate me. I looked out at the street, puddles shining in the dim porch light, the oak tree bending but still standing. No, I said. I don't hate you. I just don't recognize you sometimes. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I didn't know how to fix things after Mom died. You shut down. I tried to move forward, but I think I just ran away from everything that reminded me of her, including you. Her voice cracked on that last word. I left you on that road because it felt like you'd already left us years ago. The words hit like a slow punch, not cruel, just painfully honest. I sat there in silence, the rain filling the spaces between us. Maybe I did, I said finally. I didn't know how to be both a father and a widower. Every word out of your mouth sounded like hers, and every time I looked at you, I saw what I'd lost. I thought staying quiet would protect you from my grief. She nodded, tears mixing with the rain. And instead, it made me believe you didn't care. Yeah, I murmured. That's what silence does. For the first time in years, we just sat there, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as two people trying to find their way back through the wreckage. Finally, she said softly, I'm sorry, Dad. The words weren't enough, but they were a start. I took a slow breath and said, You can't fix what's already broken, Emily, but you can stop breaking what's left. She nodded, staring at the soaked yard. Will you come back home? I looked at the house, at the chipped paint, the sagging gutters, the place that had seen more storms than either of us. Maybe, I said, when it feels like home again. The rain slowed to a drizzle. Somewhere, a car horn echoed in the distance. Maybe Derek's, maybe not. The world smelled like wet earth and forgiveness. When I finally stood, Emily reached out and caught my sleeve. Dad, thank you for coming back. I met her eyes. You're the one who called. Then I walked down the steps, the water rippling around my boots, and climbed into the truck. The windshield fogged as I started the engine. Through the glass, I saw her still standing there, barefoot, small against the sky that was finally clearing. Some storms wash things away. Others leave them cleaner than before. A week passed after the storm, quiet and heavy, like the air right before dawn. The town was drying up, puddles shrinking, debris swept away, but inside me, the flood still lingered. Some things don't drain as easily as rainwater. I hadn't heard from Emily since that night. Not a call, not a text. I figured we'd both said all we could. Still, when the postman knocked on my motel door early one morning, holding another small envelope, I knew before I even looked at the handwriting who it was from. Jacob, Grandpa, Mom said you came during the storm. She told me what you did, and I wanted to say thank you. The house is okay now, but we're not living there anymore. Mom says it's better that way. We moved to a small apartment near the school. It's not fancy, but it's quiet. I like that. I think you would too. I want to tell you something, but please don't be mad at Mom. I just think you should know. Dad's been gone for a while. Mom says he's working things out, but I heard them arguing before he left. He said something about papers and money he couldn't get without your signature. Mom cried after that. She said she didn't know he was trying to take your house, that he told her everything was already done. I know you don't like talking about forgiveness, but I think she's really sorry. Please visit us, Grandpa. Mom keeps pretending she's fine, but she isn't. Love, Jacob. I read it twice, then folded it carefully into my wallet. Not because of Derek or Emily, but because of that last line, please visit us. I sat in the truck for nearly an hour before driving to the address he'd written at the bottom of the letter. A small two-story apartment building on the edge of town, old but clean. Wind chimes rattled softly on the balcony. When Emily opened the door, her face froze in disbelief. Her eyes were tired, rimmed with sleeplessness. She looked smaller somehow, not weaker, just human again. Dad, she whispered. You came. You invited me. I said gently, holding up the letter. Jacob darted from behind her, barefoot again, grinning wide. Grandpa. He threw his arms around me, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. Not because of the hug, but because I hadn't realized how much I'd missed one. Inside, the apartment was modest. 2 bedrooms, 1 couch, boxes still half unpacked. The walls were bare, except for one photo of Martha, framed and placed carefully on the shelf. Emily caught me looking at it. Jacob wanted to bring it, she said quietly. He said Grandma should be where peace lives. We sat around a small table. Jacob poured me juice like it was a ceremony. The silence was warm this time, not avoidance, just understanding. Then Emily spoke. Dad, there's more you should know. I nodded. Jacob told me a little. Her hands twisted in her lap. When Derek found out you still had the deed, he panicked. He said he'd take care of it. I didn't know what he meant until I saw the listings go live. He forged some documents, but the bank caught it because of your lock. I stayed quiet, letting her speak. He blamed me. She continued, voice breaking. Said I should have convinced you to sign earlier. That I made things complicated. He took money from our joint account and disappeared. Jacob looked down. Mom says he's not coming back. Emily covered her face. I didn't just lose a husband, Dad. I lost the last excuse I had for treating you the way I did. The room was still, heavy with everything unsaid. I could have told her I warned you, or you should have known. But what good would that do? Sometimes pain doesn't need words. It just needs witness. I leaned back, exhaled, and said quietly, Derek was never the problem, Emily. He was just the storm. You were the one holding the umbrella and pretending it wasn't raining. Tears slid down her cheeks, but she nodded. You're right. Jacob stood and fetched something from his room, a small wooden box. He placed it in front of me. We started keeping things that matter in here, he said. Things we don't want to forget again. Inside were simple things. Martha's photo, the watch I'd given him, Emily's wedding ring, and a folded piece of paper. I opened it. It was my letter to Jacob, the one I mailed after his first note. You kept this? I asked. He smiled. You told me silence can be strong. I wanted to remember that. I reached over and ruffled his hair. You're smarter than I was at your age. For the first time in a long time, Emily laughed softly through her tears. He gets that from Mom, she said. We talked for hours, about nothing and everything. The past wasn't gone, but it wasn't choking us anymore. It just sat quietly in the corner, like an old photograph no one has the heart to throw away. Before I left, Emily walked me to the door. Dad, she said, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just hope you'll let us try again. I looked at her for a long moment, then said, You already are. Outside, the wind was calm. The sky was clean. That soft blue that only comes after a storm has washed everything honest again. As I walked to the truck, Jacob's voice called out from the balcony. Grandpa. I looked up. He was holding the pocket watch again, the one that never stopped ticking. It's still working, he shouted. I smiled. So am I. Then I got into the truck and started the engine. The road ahead was empty, golden with late afternoon light. For once, it didn't feel like running. It felt like returning. The desert never forgets. Even after storms, after years, after every road trip gone wrong, it keeps its scars, quiet and endless. Maybe that's why I chose to drive again. To see where it all began, and where, somehow, it had to end. It was late afternoon when I pulled up to the old diner off Route 66. The same one where I'd eaten pie after they left me behind. The sign still flickered. Marge's Diner, half the letters burned out, still stubbornly alive. Marge herself stepped out, wiping her hands on her apron. "Well, I'll be," she said with that crooked grin. "Didn't think I'd see you twice in one lifetime, Stephen." "You'll be seeing me 3 times if you keep that coffee hot," I said. She laughed and poured me a cup. "How's the road treating you?" "Better than it used to," I said. "It doesn't leave me behind anymore." I was halfway through my coffee when a familiar voice came from the doorway. "Mom says I get to choose the music this time." Jacob. He stood there in a red hoodie, grinning like summer itself. Emily followed behind him, hair tied back, eyes softer than I'd seen them in years. They'd called 2 days earlier. "We're driving west," Emily had said. "Jacob wants to see where you were, you know." I knew, and I didn't say no. "Car's outside," she said now, handing me the keys. "You drive." So we did. The same road, the same horizon, but everything felt different. The air was cooler, the silence warmer. Jacob sat in the back, humming along to an old Johnny Cash song, while Emily stared out the window, her hand resting lightly on the dashboard, like she needed to touch something real. For miles, we didn't speak. We didn't have to. The road spoke for us, the hum of the tires, the rhythm of the wind. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "You know, I used to hate this drive. Too empty, too slow. Now I think I understand why you loved it." "It's not empty," I said. "You just have to stop long enough to hear what it's saying." She smiled faintly. "Mom used to say the same thing." We pulled over at the same stretch of road where it had all happened, the gas station long gone, replaced by a small rest stop. The sign out front was sun-bleached, the paint peeling, but the desert around it looked the same. Still endless. Still honest. Jacob hopped out first. "Is this it?" "This is it," I said. He looked around. "Doesn't look scary." I chuckled. "It never does, until you're the one standing here alone." Emily turned to me, her eyes wet. "Dad, I can't believe you. Survived?" I finished with a smile. "Takes more than a bad road to get rid of me." We stood there for a while, 3 generations breathing the same dry wind, listening to the quiet hum of the desert. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled, soft, harmless this time. "I think about that day a lot," Emily said finally. "How far we drove before we realized what we'd really done." I looked at her, not with anger, but something closer to grace. "Then maybe it's time to drive back." She nodded, eyes glistening. Jacob crouched down and picked up a small stone from the roadside. He turned it over in his hand, then pressed it into my palm. "For the box," he said, "so we don't forget this place." I closed my fingers around it. It was warm from the sun, solid, simple, like truth. We drove on until the sky turned orange and gold, the sun dipping low over the desert line. Emily leaned her head against the window, Jacob asleep in the back. For the first time, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace that didn't come from winning, or proving, or surviving. Just peace. I pulled into a scenic overlook and parked. The silence was deep enough to feel sacred. Emily stirred and looked at me. "Where to now?" she asked. "Home," I said. "Wherever we decide, that is." She smiled. "Then let's keep driving a little longer." So we did. The 3 of us, on that long, forgiving stretch of Route 66. The same road that once took everything from me was now giving something back, a chance to start again, not as a father and daughter broken by pride, but as people who'd finally learned that love doesn't shout. It waits. The sky dimmed, and the stars began to appear. First 1, then a dozen, then 1,000. I rolled down the window, feeling the night air on my face. Jacob stirred in his sleep, his hand clutching that old pocket watch. It still ticked, steady and sure. Time hadn't stopped after all. It had just waited for us to catch up. And as the road stretched on beneath the tires, I finally understood what Martha used to say when life got hard. "Home isn't a place, Stephen. It's the people who stay when the storm passes." For the first time in years, I believed her.